They called him just the janitor until he defended the CEO and turned the trial upside down. Miguel Alvarez had learned long ago how to blend into the background. His broom squeaked softly across the marble floors of Greystone Corporation, his gray uniform faded from years of soap and bleach. To most, he was invisible as a man who emptied trash cans, polished brass railings, and quietly nodded when employees rushed past without so much as a glance. They called him just the janitor. But Miguel had another gift, one that no one in the skyscraper ever bothered to notice. He listened. He listened when secretaries whispered in hallways, when interns vented over coffee, when executives muttered frustrations into their phones. His work made him invisible, and invisibility gave him ears. And that's how he came to know the truth. Miguel had been with Greystone for nearly 20 years. He started when his son, Mateo, was just a baby. Back then, he had taken the job out of desperation, grateful for anything steady that could put food on the table. He never climbed ladders like the executives, never wore a suit, never got invited to office parties. But every evening, when most had gone home, Miguel would pause by the windows on the 20th floor. He'd look out at the glittering skyline and whisper to himself, "One day, Mateo will not clean floors. He will walk them in polished shoes." It wasn't bitterness that filled his heart, but hope, a kind of quiet determination born from sacrifice. That was who Miguel was, a man who believed doing right mattered, even when no one was watching. When the headlines broke, the company spiraled into chaos. CEO accused of embezzlement, the news blared. Edward Pierce, a man both admired and feared, was dragged into court with his reputation in flames. Employees whispered that he'd been caught siphoning millions. Investors fled. Even his closest colleagues kept their distance. Everyone seemed convinced Pierce was guilty. Everyone in a broken bar except Miguel. Because on one late night, weeks before the scandal erupted, Miguel had overheard a different story. He had been waxing the floor outside the boardroom when he caught two executives arguing. Their words were sharp, hushed, but damning. Doctored spreadsheets. Shell accounts offshore. If it blows up, we pin it on Pierce. Miguel froze, mop in hand. He wasn't educated in finance, but he understood betrayal when he heard it. And what he heard that night never left his memory. Still, who would listen to him? A janitor? A man whose English was broken, whose hands were calloused from labor, whose name most executives didn't even know. The risk was heavy. Speaking up could cost him his job, or worse, put him at odds with powerful men who could ruin his life. He wrestled with the decision for nights. Mateo, now in college on a scholarship, noticed his father's silence at the dinner table. "Pape tilde inverted exclamation mark, are you okay?" the boy asked one evening. Miguel forced a smile. "I just have a broken bar, something in my heart I don't know if I should carry or let go." Mateo looked at him with the same brown eyes Miguel's late wife once had. "You always taught me a wrong is wrong, no matter who does it." The words struck deep. Silence, Miguel realized, was just another form of sweeping dirt under the rug. And Miguel had spent his life cleaning. He couldn't allow injustice to stain his conscience. So when Pierce's trial began, Miguel did something no one expected. He walked into the courthouse, took a seat in the back, and waited. On the third day of testimony, when the prosecution painted Pierce as a thief and the defense seemed out of ammunition, Miguel stood. His voice shook as he asked to speak. At first, the judge frowned. The lawyers bristled. The spectators snickered. What could a janitor possibly add to this high-profile case? But then Miguel began to speak. Slowly at first, but with a clarity born from truth. He told them what he had heard that night outside the boardroom, every word etched in his memory, every detail that pointed not to Pierce, but to the very men now testifying against him. "You expect us to believe this man?" one lawyer sneered. "He cleans floors. He doesn't know business." But Miguel did not falter. He looked straight at the judge and said, "I may not know numbers on a paper, but I know lies when I hear them. And I know what I heard." Gasps filled the courtroom. Lawyers scrambled. Reporters scribbled furiously. The judge ordered investigators to check Miguel's testimony. Within days, documents surfaced that aligned perfectly with his account. Emails, hidden files, and secret transactions traced back not to Pierce, but to his accusers. The case cracked wide open. The CEO was cleared. The guilty men were exposed. And Miguel, the janitor no one saw, had turned the trial upside down. When reporters surrounded him, shoving microphones in his face, asking why he risked everything, Miguel's answer was simple. Because truth matters, even if it comes from someone holding a broom. Weeks later, Edward Pierce returned to Greystone, humbled and shaken. His sharp suits and commanding tone seemed smaller now, weighed down by the memory of how quickly his empire had almost crumbled. He sought out Miguel, not in a boardroom, but in the janitor's closet where the man was carefully folding rags. "Miguel," Pierce began, his voice unsteady. "I owe you my life. Tell me what you want. A promotion, a house, your son's tuition paid, name it, it's yours." Miguel looked at him for a long moment, then smiled and shook his head. "I don't need a title to do what's right," he said softly. "Just treat people like they matter. All of them. Even the ones cleaning your floors." For the first time, Pierce truly looked at him and saw not a janitor, but a man of honor. The story spread across news outlets and social media. To some, Miguel was a hero. To others, a symbol. To him, he was still just a man who mopped floors, who loved his son, who believed that even the smallest voice could speak truth into darkness. At Greystone, everything changed. Employees who once brushed past Miguel now greeted him warmly. Executives paused to shake his hand. Even Pierce himself began walking the halls more slowly, stopping to talk with those he once overlooked. Miguel didn't crave attention, but he welcomed the shift. Because it wasn't about him, it was about what people saw when they finally looked past uniforms, titles, and status. From that day forward, Miguel's name was spoken with respect. Not because he had exposed corruption, but because he had reminded an entire company of something greater. That dignity isn't measured by job titles. That courage can rise from the most unexpected places. And that sometimes, the quietest voices carry the power to change everything. Miguel Alvarez had once been invisible. But now, his story shined a light bright enough for the whole world to see. And that light whispered a timeless truth: no one is just anything.